This is Operation Sindoor, India's bold air campaign hitting 9 points in Pakistan. The offensive was framed as retaliation for what India alleges was a Pakistan-backed attack in Pahalgam that left 26 tourists dead. Seeking retribution, India reportedly launched a high-tech airstrike using advanced arms, among them the French-made Scalp missile, also known as Storm Shadow, and the Hammer, a guided free-fall bomb. But there's a twist. Pakistan claims it brought down 5 Indian fighter planes. Stay tuned as we explore how the events unfolded. Let's now walk through the timeline of the operation's execution. Around 1:28 a.m., Indian Air Force jets, including the French Rafale, took to the skies, initiating targeted missile attacks on 9 locations situated either in Pakistan or Pakistan-administered Kashmir. These were reported to include major strategic spots like Bahawalpur, Jammu HQ, Murik, Ling-Talet, and other places such as Tarakal, Samani, Poonch, Kotli, and Muzaffarabad. Rafale jets carried a mix of Scalp cruise missiles and Hammer precision-guided bombs. The air offensive was rapid, lasting roughly 23 minutes, and was marked by precise coordination between 1:28 and 1:51 a.m. Powerful detonations were heard in several towns, triggering blackouts in Bahawalpur and Muzaffarabad, creating panic and confusion across the region. The strikes are believed to have originated from Ambala Air Force Station in Haryana, one of India's key Rafale bases. Around 2 a.m., a wave of Rafale armed with Storm Shadow missiles likely departed Ambala under strict radio silence. Utilizing high altitude and stealth flight profile, they carefully maneuvered near the international border, skimming radar zones while remaining inside Indian territory. At a distance of 100 to 120 kilometers from the India-Pakistan border, the Scalp missiles were released toward pre-fed coordinates deep inside Pakistani territory. These targets were reportedly linked to terror operatives and supply infrastructure. Thanks to the Scalp missile's extended range of over 500 kilometers, the French Rafale fighters didn't have to cross into Pakistani airspace. The missiles likely flew at low altitudes, guided by terrain-matching technology to bypass radar systems and hit their targets with remarkable precision. At the same time, a second group of Rafales equipped with Hammer bombs, a class of modular, maneuverable precision munitions, was launched for targeted strikes close to the line of control. These jets, possibly departing from Ambala or forward air bases in Jammu, dropped the Hammers from a standoff range of around 50 to 70 kilometers. Their aim, bunkers and infiltration paths in locations like Kotli and Bimber. Designed to pierce reinforced positions, the Hammer bombs were likely used to destroy heavily protected shelters suspected of harboring militants or weapons caches. Meanwhile, Sukhoi Su-30 fighters took off from Bareilly Air Force Station. These jets may have been equipped with air-launched versions of the BrahMos cruise missile, a high-speed weapon with deep strike capability. The Su-30s followed a distinct southern route, likely to avoid detection, before releasing their BrahMos missiles toward vital enemy support systems. These included radar stations and ammunition stockpiles believed to be backing non-traditional combat operations. With a velocity exceeding Mach 2.8, the BrahMos sharply limited the adversary's time to respond, and its extended reach, up to 400 or even 500 kilometers, enabled the Su-30s to hit deep targets and exit without entering hostile airspace. To complement these manned sorties, a coordinated network of loitering drones, possibly Indian-made Alphas or Israeli-origin Skystrikers, was activated. These units were launched several hours ahead from mobile launchers situated in forward sectors like Rajouri and Poonch. Once over target zones, they orbited silently, awaiting confirmation of hostile presence. Upon receiving real-time signals indicating enemy activity or high-value personnel, these kamikaze drones dove into their targets, inflicting sharp, localized strikes. Primary targets included mobile communication hubs and a moving command vehicle convoy. Allegedly en route to a fortified facility, unverified reports from the area claim that Pakistan issued a rapid and aggressive counterstrike following the recent flare-up, which supposedly led to the downing of 5 Indian jets. Statements attributed to Pakistani defense sources suggest the targets were 3 Dassault Rafale fighters, 1 Sukhoi Su-30, a MiG-29, and an Israeli-built Heron drone. Before we move forward, let's understand how this French-origin Scalp missile functions. The Storm Shadow missile is deployable from aircraft such as the Dassault Rafale, the Eurofighter Typhoon, and more recently, modified MiG-29 or Su-27 fighters. As illustrated in the accompanying visuals, it is a stealthy, air-launched cruise missile engineered for deep strike capability. Interestingly, in France, this missile is referred to as Scalp EG. To grasp its scale, it's helpful to compare it with an individual, and then alongside American and Russian equivalents. For now, let's go through the step-by-step process behind its operation. Once released by the aircraft, the missile deploys its twin wings within seconds. During the initial navigation phase, it utilizes a combination of GPS and inertial guidance systems. It descends to low altitude for cruise mode and refines its course using satellite data to confirm its exact position, just as shown in the animation here. As depicted, it hugs terrain contours and flies at low levels beneath radar coverage, skimming along hillsides and terrain features. This low-profile flight path is precisely why Pakistani radar systems reportedly failed to detect the incoming Storm Shadow missile. In its terminal phase, the missile uses thermal imaging and terrain matching tech for final guidance. Here's how the process unfolds. An infrared seeker or IR sensor scans the terrain and processes image data, helping the missile stay locked on course. As it nears its destination, the missile climbs in altitude. This maneuver assists control centers in tracking the strike path, even under low light or night conditions, via a secure two-way data link. For its terminal phase, the nose cone is discarded to activate a high-definition thermal camera or IR homing unit. This enables precise imaging of the designated area. The missile uses pre-fed target data to identify and confirm the strike point. Once validated, it shifts into a dive to neutralize the objective. Now let's rewind and trace how the entire chain of events began. Indian sources allege that Adil Ahmed Thera, who had recently returned from Pakistan, played an instrumental role in guiding the group. Thoker and other operatives reportedly infiltrated Indian territory from Pakistan-controlled Kashmir through the rugged Panchajuri sector along the Lok Bak in October 2024. This zone, marked by its challenging geography, has long been used for unlawful border crossings. After entering, the militants navigated through dense forests and rough hills across Jammu and Kashmir, deliberately keeping to obscure routes to avoid patrols. Their movements stayed under the radar as they advanced toward Anantnag and eventually reached Pahalgam. From the thick coniferous cover surrounding Bays-Ren Meadow, a well-known scenic spot, the attackers emerged and began firing indiscriminately at unsuspecting tourists who had gathered there, catching everyone off guard. Now, let's walk through the detailed sequence of events and see how the nightmare unfolded. At approximately 2:25 p.m., survivors recalled hearing the first bursts of gunfire while many tourists were either relaxing, eating, or getting ready to leave. A moment of unsettling silence followed, spreading panic and uncertainty among the crowd. By 2:45, militants clad in military-style gear emerged from the dense tree line and began firing randomly at the assembled tourists. Eyewitnesses claimed the gunmen occasionally paused to question men, asking if they were Muslim before deciding their fate. Tourists scattered in all directions. Some hid behind stone walls, others slid down embankments, or dove into trenches in a desperate bid to avoid the bullets. The gunfire was continuous, echoing across the valley for roughly 30 minutes. By around 3 p.m., the attackers had shifted focus toward those attempting to flee via the few accessible escape routes. The onslaught left at least 26 individuals dead, among them a naval officer on his honeymoon and an ex-banker visiting with family. At approximately 3:40 p.m., Indian Army helicopters appeared overhead, marking the start of a major extraction mission. Elite commando units quickly secured the zone. By 4 p.m., they had gathered the traumatized survivors and began escorting them to safety. Amid the confusion, the assailants slipped away once again into the thick, surrounding wilderness before the military could confront them. According to reports from on-site witnesses and subsequent investigations, the militants made full use of the rough terrain and forest cover to aid in their escape. They exploited the natural surroundings for concealment and are believed to have ditched stolen mobile phones during their withdrawal to hinder tracking. As per the latest intelligence, the assailants remain at large, prompting a vast search operation that is now sweeping through the forests and mountains near Pahalgam and Anantnag. This might indicate how Pakistan could react if Indian strikes persist in the coming weeks. For now, both sides appear keen to avoid crossing the nuclear threshold, yet neither seems ready to yield. Aware that its armed forces and economy were significantly outmatched by India's, Pakistan's leadership realized that time was not on their side. Military strategists concluded that if a conflict was inevitable, they would need to act swiftly and with intensity. The doctrine was clear: hit hard, hit first, capture ground fast, and compel global powers to step in before India could mobilize its full military might. Pakistan opted to twist India's cold start doctrine, originally meant for rapid Indian incursions, into a desperate preemptive campaign of its own. That's the strategy: take the initiative before India unleashes its massive force. Just as a reminder, Pakistan does have American-made F-16 fighters, but due to export restrictions, they're barred from being deployed against India. Instead, Pakistan plans to rely on Chinese-made JF-17 Thunder jets to initiate the opening salvo. In this plan, before daylight on day one, Pakistani aircraft would surge across the border, targeting Indian Air Force bases in Punjab, Rajasthan, and Jammu and Kashmir. Their missiles roar downward, striking radar arrays, command centers, and forward airstrips, designed to cripple India's early warning systems and clear the path for what was coming next. Pakistan's armored might would follow. The Khalid main battle tank and its supporting fleet would begin their advance. Launching from the Lahore-Sialkot axis, elite Pakistani armored brigades would charge into Indian Punjab. Their primary aim, capture Amritsar and key districts nearby before Indian forces could fully mobilize. Holding ground across the border would provide significant leverage in post-conflict talks if they managed to retain control. Simultaneously, in the unforgiving terrain of Kashmir, Pakistani commandos, irregular militias, and skilled infiltrators crossed the line of control. Their task was bold: sever the crucial Jammu-Srinagar highway, effectively cutting off the Kashmir Valley from the Indian mainland, a strategic chokehold. Farther south, Indian military columns penetrated Pakistan's Sindh region, advancing swiftly toward Hyderabad and Karachi. The goal was to stretch Pakistani defenses and redirect reinforcements away from the critical northern sector. At sea, Pakistan's naval command acknowledged they were heavily outgunned by India's vast maritime arsenal, including carriers and submarines. Rather than engage directly, they dispatched submarines into the depths of the Arabian Sea. Their goal: sow underwater mines near India's western shores, targeting areas around Mumbai and Gujarat. These vessels weren't intended to win open battles. They were there to delay, disrupt, and compel India to commit resources toward maritime defense. Let's now turn to how India's Cold Start doctrine is structured. The strategy integrates the nation's military arms, Army, Air Force, and others, into swift, coordinated assault groups capable of rapid strikes. Even as Pakistani armored units crossed the border, the Indian Air Force, larger and more technologically advanced, had already launched counteroffensives, executing a pre-designed strike plan. India deployed its state-of-the-art Rafale fighter jets alongside the seasoned MiG-21s and the highly capable Sukhoi Su-30s. In no time, these aircraft confronted Pakistan's approaching armor columns, swooping into the combat zone with speed and fury. Fighter-bomber squadrons, shielded by advanced electronic warfare systems and flanked by interceptors, dove across the border into enemy airspace. Their objectives were strategically selected: neutralize air defense platforms, disrupt radar installations, and dismantle vital military infrastructure in urban centers like Lahore, Sargodha, and Multan. The directive was ruthless in its focus: cripple Pakistan's command and control networks, dismantle defensive grids, and leave its military assets wide open to India's relentless assault. While Indian jets dominated the skies, their ground assault began with equal intensity. The elite strike corps rolled forward with unrelenting momentum. Massive Russian T-90 tanks, India's own Arjun MBTs, and mechanized brigades pushed ahead, their sheer weight turning open terrain into rumbling warpaths. Armor columns and infantry units tore through Pakistani forward positions with brutal efficiency. In less than 2 days, Indian spearheads had reached the outskirts of Lahore. Instead of getting bogged down in direct confrontations, Indian commanders encircled the city, cutting off its lifelines and isolating reinforcements. Every kilometer secured on Pakistani ground increased the potential for escalation, but India's high command knew delays would only benefit their adversary. Determined to score a decisive win before diplomatic pressure mounted, they accelerated the offensive. Further south, Indian troops advanced deep into Pakistan's Sindh province. Columns raced toward Hyderabad and Karachi, striking fast with the intent to disrupt supply routes and strategic connections. The goal was precise: sever the economic core from the rest of the nation. By isolating Karachi, Pakistan's commercial hub, India sought to deliver a crippling blow to its rivals' wartime logistics and financial networks. In the Kashmir region, Indian troops engaged with unwavering resolve to thwart Pakistani infiltrators. At sea, the Indian Navy executed operations with calculated precision. Carrier battle groups, including the INS Vikrant, advanced toward Pakistan's coastline, enforcing a stringent blockade around Karachi. BrahMos missiles targeted Pakistan's port facilities and crucial energy infrastructures. Even Gwadar, a port developed with significant Chinese investment, came under attack as Indian naval forces asserted dominance over the Arabian Sea. During the initial intense week of conflict, both nations endured severe losses. Front lines shifted and battles intensified, but India's superior military capacity and industrial strength began to shift the balance. Within Pakistan's high command, as Lahore faced encirclement and Karachi experienced isolation, discussions of deploying tactical nuclear weapons emerged. This last dire option loomed closer to consideration. We produce original 4K 3D animations with a dedicated team of animators. Please support us by subscribing and leaving a comment for more exclusive engineering animations crafted for you.